Aloha, everybody, and welcome to Experience Network on Aquarian Radio, and I'm your host, Janet Carol Lessin. Today, we have our special guest, Ryan Stacey, and he's a certified private investigator, the president and CEO of Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services, and the former national chief investigator for MUFON Canada. Ryan is considered an expert in the UFO paranormal field, and he's been featured on television. He's lectured at major conferences, and he's had many articles published. And he's currently writing his first book, called Believe, an investigative study building a bridge between the borders of paranormal and extraterrestrial phenomena. He's personally investigated over 800 paranormal UFO sightings internationally. He's the founder of a volunteer group called the Experiencer Support Association, which is TESA, which assists anyone that has come into contact with apparitions, haunts, poltergeists, and other unusual phenomena associated with the subject. And it doesn't matter what the topic is or the nature of the subject, Ryan Stacey is an investigator through and through. If you want answers, he will find it. Ryan has been a private investigator since 2009 and continues to help the public privately with issues ranging from infidelity to strange sounds, shadows, and lights in the sky. No matter how strange, no matter how unfamiliar, Ryan will get to the bottom of it. So that's a wonderful bio. Let me click on this button here to get Ryan on our show. Aloha, Ryan. Welcome to the Aquarian Radio Network, to Experiencers Network. Thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
Hello, yes. So that's, I have more information on aquarianradio.com about Ryan, and I've got some pictures and things. But, Ryan, I'd like you to tell us about yourself, like where you were born, where you were raised, how you got into this field. I guess you first started as an investigator. Anyway, you can tell us your history. We're going to listen to you. And if I have any questions, I'll interject. But your listeners are waiting to hear about you. So take it away. Okay.
I've always been interested in paranormal. I've always grown up Ghostbusters. So I was born in 1986. I'm 33 years old. I'm originally from a small town called Midland in Ontario. I'm actually from Canada. I went to college actually for police foundations. Graduated from there. I applied to many police agencies over the years, and I decided that I was more involved with investigations because I also work security at the time. I got really interested in investigations, and I loved the idea that I had more control being a private investigator than a public investigator. I kind of been doing that for many years, but along the way I've always had an interest in paranormal. I started investigating, kind of as a hobby around that time, 2009-ish, I guess, with a couple groups that, seen all the shows like Ghost Adventures and whatnot. And we were curious about things in the area. When I was doing that, the group I was with didn't really take it as serious as I've always wanted it to be. So I thought it was fun, it was a joke, or things like that. So that was kind of like where I guess the seriousness kind of started from. From there, maybe a year or so, I discovered MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network. They're an American-based organization, and then I discovered that there was a detachment or umbrella part in Canada. I had applied for the field investigator position back in 2015, I believe. I started out as just a regular private investigator, but they knew I was started out as a regular field investigator for MUFON, even though they knew that I was involved with paranormal. At that time, and still today, MUFON doesn't accept paranormal reports, but I did like the fact that I was able to get lights in the sky and UFOs and whatnot too. So within that, about a year had passed. I'd been promoted to the provincial director of Ontario and the chief investigator of Ontario for MUFON Canada. And then about a year after that, I was promoted to the assistant chief investigator for the country of Canada. And then I became the director of training for MUFON National, so I was then responsible for teaching other field investigators how to investigate UFOs and their sightings. I did eventually step down from that and focus more on my work here in Canada. And then I became the national chief investigator for MUFON Canada. So that brings me up to about a few months ago. Along that way, I had investigated many cases, close to 700 with MUFON, and then I'm over, I think I just capped over 800 recently with TESA. I had found that MUFON's focus was mainly just on UFOs and sightings, and I guess their range was limited in the sense, and every time a paranormal report would come in, it never, in my opinion, wasn't handled properly. And what I ended up doing was, because it was known that I was a paranormal investigator prior, a lot of these cases were sent to me on the side to investigate, so that way they wouldn't end up in the trash can or unwanted or I guess missed. And then eventually my work got so busy that I decided to create a database or a reporting system off to the side to make it easier for me to investigate these cases, because I enjoyed it and it was good and it was getting busy. And then while I did that, I ended up creating I found some kinks and some, I guess, constructive criticism within the MUFON system. I presented those to MUFON, inquiring to, assist and help and make the product better. That was rejected. They mainly was rejected because they were, I guess, focused more on UFOs than anything else. So I still worked on TESA on the side. Now, TESA wasn't named TESA. It came about, the idea was always there for a while, but then I got to the point where I felt that experiencers themselves weren't being as appreciated as I believe them to be, in the sense that MUFON's protocol is to archive the case, take it, you get the permission, you sign your rights away, and then they get to use it, in the books and whatnot. And there's a whole financial structure that MUFON uses, but I found that the experiencers, the ones who gave them the information, gave them very little, or gave them absolutely nothing, or at the very least credit for the report. So that was an issue I've always carried for many, many years. Being a director, I was silent. I wasn't able to say my opinion for a while. So just recently, this is probably the second show that I've been on where I'm actually able to speak freely. So in a nutshell, I had a lot of concerns with how the organization was run. I mean, everyone's got different opinions. Everyone's got different thoughts, but what I ended up doing is creating a resource center, I guess, for those who are experiencing abductions or paranormal or anything like that. And the idea was to give that extra support for those who may be suffering or have some traumatic influence to some of these experiences. Now, in doing so, even though it was brought to the MUFON table as a collaboration or a partnership, it was viewed as a threat, mainly because TESA is next to free, and MUFON is profitable, even though it's not for profit, but it's a profitable organization. So
I want to interrupt. Yeah. I want to interrupt for 1 second here. You're sometimes the mic's not real clear, so I'm not sure. Sometimes it's really clear, and then sometimes it gets garbled. So I don't know if we can adjust that a little bit. Maybe it's where you're holding it or something. So anyway, because when it gets garbled, it's like I don't know. The words run together, so I'm having trouble hearing it. But I wanted to just tell you that I've heard this criticism before, and I love MUFON. I work with them. I know Jan Harson, and yet it's only doing, it's always done that. Back in the day, they wouldn't talk to experiencers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they're growing, but I love what you're doing with TESA, because Whitley Strieber started to make the connection between UFOs and people that are dead. He was saying at these different events that some of the experiencers were saying that they were on a UFO or something, a ship, and they would be there with their relatives that were deceased. So this connection started to come through, and I think if we don't look at the whole picture like you're doing, we're not going to get the whole picture. It ends up in the trash, like you said. So I really applaud you in your efforts. So wonderful.
Thank you. And that's exactly the point. Is MUFON is great for what it does. Like, if you focus on the investigations of UFOs, that's what they're famous for. That's what they started out. It's called the Mutual UFO Network, right? So that's their cream of their crop. That's their focus. But the thing is because it's so big and so popular over the years, that's when people need to report anything, that's who they report to. But it's because there hasn't been anything else. So I guess on the inside, it's just MUFON. It's not just we did do our best to say, hey, thank you for a report, but that's out of our expertise. But I mean, for me, when that comes in, I was thinking, well, that's not a good enough answer. This person's calling us for help. We should be able to do something. So again,
so is your organization international, or is it just limited to Canada?
Well, I am limited to Canada because I am in Canada, so it's available to anyone within reach. So it's just Canadian run, it's just Canadian operated. So that's a different structure altogether too, because we have different legal system. We have different ways of doing things as well. But I'm not going to reject any case from that comes into our reporting system at all. For me, let me just, if I could explain a little bit about how TESA runs. So the idea, it's called the Experiencers Support Association, and again, it's for the experiencers and to provide support. And the association type is more or less the a banding of individuals like yourself and anyone else who's doing the same thing, who's going to work together and promote or get down to the bottom or provide research or what have you. The idea is to not monopolize the market, but to work together and with shared efforts and hope that we all come to the answer. So with MUFON being as big as it is, it's great, but it's only part of it. And I would love to have MUFON a part of the association, but right now they see TESA as a threat, mainly because we also investigate UFOs too. I believe that UFOs and paranormal are all connected. In my experience, I've researched some abduction cases where some people report shadow figures, and then in the paranormal world, those are shadow people. So like it's a different, it's a different group, but it's reporting the same thing. So my reporting system for TESA is designed to break down the characteristics. So when you make a report, when you make a report, it's going to ask you information specifically about the event, not where you live. It doesn't matter unless the event happened where you live. It's going to break it down into categories. So, it's not just UFOs. It'd be UAP. It could be, I got to pull my system up to give you the full list here. Actually, give me 1 second.
And you're starting to get garbled again. So
I think. Okay.
Do you have a headset?
I'm moving No, I don't. So I know what's happening is I'm getting relaxed and I'm moving my hand away from the phone. So I'll get I'll get better situated here. So
yes, I recommend a headset for the next time. But go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. No, for sure. There we go on there. All right, so it's broken down into categories. So we have abduction, aerial phenomenon, astral projection, apparition, crop formation, cryptids, entity, extrasensory perception, human-initiated contact, orbs, possession, unexplained livestock death, unusual or paranormal activity, and unusual weather conditions. So whereas MUFON was just UFOs, but we tend to get all of those things reported to MUFON. And because it wasn't a UFO, it was thrown in the trash. And by thrown in the trash, it literally just people who believe in the MUFON model or within the MUFON training is to, they're not trained to investigate these things. So what are they supposed to do? So it gets ignored. Some people do go above and beyond, and that's why we have many different side groups doing the same thing. But the idea here is that as we mentioned earlier, that the information is important. So if we study all these phenomena separately, we might be able to find trends, and that's the idea. TESA, with my investigating part, is to measure trends. So once you select a category, let's just say, I don't know, do you want to pick a category, just a random one?
Let me look. I just pulled it up. So where do I get the categories?
So if you select the report, go to tesacan.org, select the reporting system on the reporting system tab.
Okay, good.
It'll ask you a couple of those questions too, like make sure you know what you're getting yourself into and all that stuff.
Okay.
If you just say yes to the first question, and scroll all the way down to what type of experience are you reporting?
Okay, this is great. Okay. Wait, where did this experience occur?
Yeah, keep going down.
How old were you? Is this ongoing or isolated? Did I go past it?
Nope, you're still keep going.
What type of experience did you report? Okay.
There it is. So if you see the drop-down menu,
for old eyes.
Yeah.
Okay. So
just for fun, pick one.
I've had everything. I don't think I've ever been possessed. No livestock death. Okay, so I've had most of these things. So let's just start at the top. So now it's interesting you're calling it abduction, because some people call it contact.
So if you select abduction, you'll get a definition, right? So right below that, it pops up. Abduction is the action or an instance of forcibly taking someone against their will. And then underneath it, you have a subcategory. Which of these best describes your captor? You have three choices: extraterrestrial, human, or shadow figure. And the idea is this is designed using what's called conditional logic. So based on your answers, you'll be asked subcategory answers.
Oh, I see. Okay, so let me just say extraterrestrial.
Okay, so then you selected extraterrestrial. So from there, then you would go on to describe that. So what I'm going to be doing is measuring all abduction cases and what someone else selects. So say, for an example, you selected extraterrestrial and somebody else made a report and said abduction, and they chose to put shadow figure as what was best described. And then what I do is I look at the characteristics and research to break everything down. And when I ask for images and whatnot, these are 9 times out of 10, I will get a similar drawing of what looks or appears to be the same or very similar, even though they've been described as something different. And what we have here is that, I guess, evidence that the paranormal and UFO communities are the same, because it's just a matter of social media or mainstream media, separating the two for over the years. The term paranormal actually breaks down to actually just means anything above the realms of normal. So technically, UFOs and alien abductions are considered paranormal, but yet there's 2 major camps that with a divide, right?
So let me slow you down here. So I'm here on the site, and I picked. Let's see, went into extraterrestrial. But what if they're Terran but they're non-human? And then what if it's okay? So a shadowy figure. Are you putting? Okay, are ghosts in shadowy figure? They're not really shadowy. They could be luminescent, or you could have orbs.
Right. So it is subjective too. So I can edit this at any time. So if you send me, if there's something that can be added to that category, I would be interested in knowing that. But if I know that
I can help you.
If you select
go ahead.
entity instead of abduction, like abduction would more so be reporting the event of being taken.
Okay.
If you selected
so I'm going to take
entity, and then it's defined as a physical humanoid type being of existence. And then your categories there are extraterrestrial, half human, half something else, human adult, human child, shadow figure. Mm-hmm. So there's more categories I could add as I go on. This is designed based on my current knowledge and the information that's coming through. I do often make changes. As another example, if you were to type, say, you said orbs, so you select orbs. Orbs are defined as a unexplained ball of light caught in pictures
here's
or on
orbs,
video.
yeah. Okay, I see how it works. Okay, sorry, I went too fast. I missed all that stuff because I was well, this is fascinating. So this gets people. I mean, they could go back and for each type of experience, get the subcategories. So what if they have all of them or most of them? Would they fill out a separate form each one?
Yeah. So I really have a hard time because everyone's familiar with MUFON. So when I compare to MUFON, it doesn't necessarily mean that this way is right. It just means that this is how it's different in comparison to. So currently, MUFON is the only thing I can compare it to. But when a report comes into MUFON, you get this blurb, you get this blob of information of everyone typing what the experience. And then what my job has been for all these years is to take that information, broken paragraphs, all this stuff, and try to make sense of it. Whereas if you go through and actually fill out a report, on the back end, when I get an email that tells me a report's been submitted, it's been split into categories. So I have the who, what, where, when, the description, everything I absolutely need to do a proper investigation. So the work is done for me a lot easier.
I see that. Because I was recently I got interviewed because I was curious how it worked, and it seemed like they were putting everything into abduction in the experiencer thing. And so I spent like a long time dealing with abduction questions, and it's like, but I don't perceive these as abductions. To me, they're contact, and it's like a conscious contact. So you would have the category.
So maybe a conscious contact. So maybe extrasensory perception could be considered that. Defined as perception that involves awareness of information about events eternal to the self, not gained through the senses, and not deducible from previous experience.
Sometimes someone's an ongoing contactee for like me. I'm for life, and I have a lot of people. And anyway, this is interesting. I mean, it's fascinating. I understand what you're trying to do.
Because then I'm splitting it up, right? So that's a new category. I can definitely add that, right? So with MUFON, you get one big blob of information. Now with this, it forces you to make multiple reports, but for the benefit, right? So say you were abducted by a half-human creature. So you would put a report in under abduction, and you would describe the abduction, describe the event, right? And then you would put in another report later on about the entity, and then you would describe the entity. Then I have two separate reports. But when the reports come in, I have you identify yourself, so I know that you have multiple reports. So what I'll do is I'll investigate each case separately because the information is different subject. And then when I reach out to because you'll have an option at the end of the report to say, will there be more reports? If you say yes, then we just wait until they get the last report that says no. So then we have all the reports. So I investigate them all individually, and then I compare them, because that's where the study comes in with the experiencer, because the individual person is experiencing multiple different phenomena, and then we can try and figure out, is this person a contactee? Is this person a starseed? Is this person, suffering from mental health? So once we have more cases from the same individual, we have more evidence, and yet it's measured not in a blob, but individually. And in the third layer of that investigation actually will show trends where some people may choose different words to describe the same things, and that's what I'm interested in, is actually to understand the phenomenon. What we need to know is where the root of it is, because you got to come down to the source, right?
So since this is virtual, this is the internet, you could get people from all over the world.
Yes.
I mean, really, it's not limited to just Canada or just your neighborhood.
Where I'm limited is my travel, right? So like the best way to investigate anything is putting boots on the ground. And I can't travel everywhere. But
right.
I'm also, so if you click the data tab on the left-hand side, you'll see here I've created what's called the Canadian Current Event Survey. While I was with MUFON, I made 2 UFO reports using the MUFON data. So if you select the UFO report 2018, and again, like if MUFON is listening, like I'm still working with you. It's just not with you.
I love MUFON too. We're not criticizing you. We're just we need to get this information internationally. And let me just interject. So I was born in Pennsylvania, right? And I'm in Maui now. So I had this. I go, well, where do I report this? I'm living in Hawaii now, but I lived in Pennsylvania. And, I've had experiences when I was in California, right? So my experiences go with me, but I've traveled many places around the world. So it didn't make sense that it was regional all the time, because they're about me, and I'm a global person. And many people, our society, we're travelers, right? So it seems odd to limit this to where the person might have had the initial experience, because I had experiences of Maui, I had experience of Hawaii.
It'll ask you in the address section where the event occurred. So I'm interested in where it happened. So whereas MUFON will ask where you live, where you work, what you did, who your brother is, who your sister is, all these information that's not relevant. Whereas I just focus on what's important to do the investigation. So so internationally it can definitely, information comes from everywhere, because the phenomenon is global.
It is everywhere.
It is everywhere, and to study it doesn't matter who's studying it. It's just we need the information. So why report? And on the data section, so if you look at that table, I'm actually measuring trends, and the idea here is to create statistics based on the characteristics. So for me, as an investigator, a private investigator, even in the legal system, I need to have facts. I need to have evidence. So in order for me to justify getting on a plane and driving somewhere to do a paranormal investigation, I need to have trends. I need to have a reason. Anyone could call and say, there's a ghost in my attic, but how do I know that you specifically have a ghost in that attic? So when I get multiple reports and I fill out this survey, that's the one I've done for MUFON, but now I'm doing one for TESA, which will be not focused on UFOs. It'll be UFOs and everything else. I'll have geographical trends based on the information that comes in. I'll be able to make an estimate and say, if between from January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, this many cases on this, were reported in this area, and therefore it's likely that this area is a hotspot. So then I'm going to go to that hotspot and actually put boots on the ground. So I will put boots on the ground, but I need this data to justify my reasons for going there. Otherwise, I can go and investigate freely, right? And then I'll have a head start on what type of equipment to bring. That's another thing too. Is MUFON, sells all this equipment, but no one ever uses it. Well, you don't use it all at once.
Right.
You have to plan an investigation, decide what equipment's best to capture the phenomenon, but you gotta study the phenomenon, and then you take what you need. You don't take everything with you. You know.
Well, this seems like this is necessary, like a necessary service that we need around the planet. You know, and is there?
Well,
do you have any plans of
that scares
expanding?
me, but yeah, no,
It
definitely.
You?
Well, it's controlled growth too, right? So I'm all, with MUFON, I had a team of investigators with me. And now I'm by myself doing the same thing I've always done, just by myself. So I don't have other investigators at the moment to share the cases with. So for example, we have 50 cases in the tank right now. I'm currently on case number 17. But I do a thorough investigation with this. It's not just thank you for your report. We'll contact you if you need it.
Well, how do you fund this?
Well,
like how are you
funding it is. I'm just funding it through my company. I'm just paying for it as it is right now.
You're
So we do accept. Yeah, it's like what can we charge for, right? We're providing a service with information that may or may not be real, and we're providing expert opinions and theories on a global phenomenon. We're doing our part. It's a service. Now, it can be funded. We do have a sponsor. We like to get sponsors, and we would advertise and we're sponsor. We try to get sponsorship through businesses or through other people like yourself who are doing the service, right? This is a service to humanity, to getting the word out, to help get the word out to each other. So that's the way we work that. We'll bring merchandise with us for the fans if they do like us. It really costs me nothing but time to run this.
Right.
And so as long as there's no patience, right? But then there's more that I would like to do as well. Of course, I can only focus on this one day a week because I work. Contributions and donations are always welcome, but they're not necessary. Our focus too, so here's, sorry MUFON, I just use you as another example here, but like MUFON will present the information, well they'll collect the information and then they'll present it in a newsletter, in a book, or on MUFON TV, but in order for you to see it, you have to pay for it.
Right.
And that includes the experiencer. So I don't agree. I never agreed with that. The experiencer shouldn't have to pay for anything. So that's why the I guess the payment scale or the financial structure is based around ad share for other businesses who are doing what we're doing to work together, not coming from the experiencer's pocket. When we do events, it's pay what you can and take what you need, meaning there's no set dollar amount. It's just basically if you want to contribute, thank you. If you don't, that's fine. Just come, right? What's most important for me is that people are showing up and people are talking about it. If I put a $5 fee on something, there's expectations. What is $5 worth to this person? What is $5 worth to that person? It's a hard market to please, and because we can't guarantee anything other than effort, and I'm trying to solve the world's biggest mystery, just like everybody else. The only thing we can really guarantee for a cost or justify a cost is merchandise, or sponsorships. We are working on. We do have a Patreon account where we're thinking we're going to do some fan bloopers or something. We to kind of raise some money, but in a way that gives back. So the Patreon account, we're basically going to raffle off something every month. In exchange for, $3 donation or whatever. It'd be $75 in value, $100 in value. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that we can produce additional content and so there's tiers. Because like with MUFON, you have to pay to see everything, and then you end up being disappointed. At least you get to see the meat and bones, and then if you want to see the fun stuff, you want to see the extra stuff, and then it's there. But if you can't afford it, you're still included, right? because
that's wonderful.
It can be like we're either all gifted and affected by some paranormal or UFO, or we're all suffering from mental health. And like there's a fine line. There is a fine line between that, and in both cases,
right.
I cannot justify saying, we'll help you, for X amount of money. So we just do what we do, and
right.
then we ask, hey, if you want to donate, then donate. If not, we're going to do it anyway. So it's more of a contribution.
Well,
than a
I
donation.
applaud you, and I know that nothing's free. So, like, you have a website, you had to build it, you have to host it, you have to maintain it, and there's all these things. But I did the same thing with Aquarian Radio. I pay for all that out of my own funds because that's my donation to the world. And so I'm an investigator like you, and so I'm here to document all this. I'm like the historian, the recorder, right? And so I'm doing it. I'm doing what you're doing, but I do it by interviews. So those who are willing to come on the interview, and then I put it out there. But if you notice, today's show is called the Experiencers Network. I tried to set up an Experiencers Network, your thing, TESA, and this was about, 10 years ago, 15 years ago now. And I realized the importance of team, but it was just me alone, and I gave it up. And then along comes Free, and, of course, MUFON's already been there. But here you are. I see this as, this is awesome because I fell flat on my face, but look at what you've accomplished. You took the baton, and you kept going. And I hate to tell you this, but I think you're going to take this global eventually because it's such an important, and I don't want to overwhelm you, and it's okay. You're not going to do it tomorrow, but this is going to take off, and you'll figure it out because there's a lot of people that will want to help out and do this.
I appreciate that, and I do feel like that too, and it's a slow, controlled growth, it's overwhelming, and I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. And we do need help, but, at the end of the day, what matters is that you report or you say something. So you don't have to report to TESA. You can report to MUFON. But you should report to MUFON and TESA and you and everybody else, because my opinion on my investigation is based on my experience and my credentials and my scope of information that I've been doing for these many years. I could miss something.
Yeah, I'm not taking reports right now. I'm going to refer them to you because I'm not taking reports. I don't have this set up. This is amazing what you have. It's awesome. I've had the same complaints of MUFON because it's like, oh, this is so limited, but they have expanded, and it was like slow growth for them too. Because I was, I'm much older than you. You're what, 33? I'm double your age. I'm 65, right? I'm almost twice your age. So I reported my first incident in 1989 or 90, and it was just so limited.
It's gotten better.
It's gotten much better, yes, it has.
They have taken. I've been nice with my journey through MUFON, but they did take a couple of my ideas, and even though they said they were bad ideas at first, and then when I created TESA, I created the website first to kind of have a digital footprint that, hey, these are my ideas, don't take them. And then here we are, but. If I could, I do want to talk about... Well, it's flattering
in some way. If they're copying you, then that's a form of flattery.
Yeah, it is, right? But, I'm also caught on quick enough that it's no, you're going to take it and you're going to do it wrong. So if you're going to do it done right, you got to do it yourself. So,
your baby. Okay.
Yeah, well, it is right now. We like it to be everyone's baby, and TESA's not just me; it's everyone. Right? We're all a part of the association. We're all working on this together. So if I could talk about the entire process, from start to finish, and those who report to MUFON can understand that they'll make a report, they'll get a couple emails back and forth, and then they'll get a decision, and you'll either agree with it or you disagree with it, and then you marry on, or you might see it on TV later on and say, hey, that was my case, blah, blah, blah. With us,
well, let me. That was interesting because it does end up on TV because I know Hollywood, they're looking for these stories, and they if they don't pay for it, they'll get away with it. So I started talking about my experiences, and next thing I know, I get people saying, "Did you see Jupiter ascending?" And I go, "No." So it was like 3 or 4 people. No. Why? Well, that's your story. I go, yeah, right. So anyway, I saw it and I went, well, there's some, you can see the basis of it, and like Hollywood, like they did with Travis Walton, they Hollywoodized things, and they go, yeah, I can see where they got this. So that is a concern, I guess, for some people. I just brush it off. I go, okay, whatever. So.
Well, that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
So here's another thing too is I do. Let's call it Uncharted Case Files I try to do every Thursday, where I'm actually talking about these cases. And I get some people saying, not wanting to watch because it's not polished, it's not Hollywood. But I mean, to me, I think, that's the raw, it's the real deal. If it's the real deal, it's supposed to be boring and bland because that's what an investigation is. There's no graphics, there's no, there's no fabrication. It's just, this is what's been reported, this is what it is, and that's it. So for me, I would rather have, someone who doesn't spend all their time on flashy advertisement to look cool and oppressive. I would rather have a raw deal, right? Because that's more real. So as an sorry.
Go ahead and take us through the process like you wanted, or is there something else you want to say? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
you,
that's what
ahead.
I was going to do. That's what I was going to do. I just didn't want to interrupt. So you make a report. So you go to tesacan.org and then you select the reporting system. You'll be asked, did you witness the event? If you select no, it'll tell you that you can't fill out a report, or because it's important that we get the information from the horse's mouth. But then it also says, like, if you don't want to fill out a report, you can contact us by other means. So we try to keep the confidentiality or the comfort zone ready for you anyway. Then let me just see. I'm going to skip through these questions. You get asked an important question too, if you're willing to be contacted. If you say no, we're not going to contact you. Right? If you say yes, then that gives us permission to contact you. We ask you if you report it to anyone else. So if you say yes, we ask you to report it to. So if you say MUFON, for an example, then that's great, because even though that MUFON isn't associated with us, yes, I'm still gonna send a message out to MUFON and say, hey, I had a report come in. Would you mind sharing some information on that case so we can work together? I'm going to be that type of person, and once you let me know who you reported to reach out and get additional input and additional information, right? So if you let me know who you reported to, then that tells me that there's more data that could collaborate your story or your experience. A little bit of a survey there. If you're satisfied or not satisfied, that's just so we know, what you didn't like, so we can do better. And you're asked, what can TESA do better? So you tell us what you want, and I always read those. Who referred you, which is great. Important. We need to know who referred you, so we know where you're hearing about us. So we can say thank you. If you would like the report to be anonymous, you select yes, but it gives you an explanation saying that statistical data and direct evidence will be used to inform the public. Your personal information will not be released. A lot of people assume that anonymous means nothing's going to be released. It just means we're keeping your name out, right? And so right. I try my best to give explanations when they select the answer, so that way when you hit submit at the end, you're fully informed on what you're doing. Then you have your information, date of birth, phone number, cell phone, blah, 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 what you prefer to be contacted with, blah, blah, blah. And then where did the experience occur? So I'm interested in where the event happened. I don't care where you live. I don't need to know where you live unless the experience happened at your house. But you don't have to say it's at your house. You just put the address in, and we do research on the property. Unless you mention in the body that it's your house, I'm not going to know it's your house. It's not important unless it's relevant to the story. Experience. Then scroll through too. I do ask what your blood type is. The reason for that is, again, I'm measuring trends. There are theories out there
right.
that the Rh negative blood. I just want to, or O negative, O positive, the Sumerian blood, all that stuff. Like I want to measure those trends and see how many unknown, abductees and things like that have certain types of blood. So you can select I don't know if you don't know or you don't want to tell. So it's still optional. I asked you what time it started, what time it ended. So another important question is this ongoing or isolated? If it's isolated, then that kind of indicates to me, okay, it's a one-time event. So we can look at a scope of things. If it's ongoing, I'm interested in that as well because it tells me that this is a reoccurring event. So we need to look into this more further. Another question immediately after that is, do you believe this to be positive or negative? If you select positive, then on the triage, it just basically means, okay, so this is information, there's no rush. I can, so when the cases come in, you're not assigned a case number until I get the email and I give you a case number. So the way I treat, the numbers aren't given in sequence. They're given in priority in the sense of positive or negative or ongoing or isolated. So an ongoing negative event would be bumped up to the top because it's continuous, which means it could happen again. And it's negative, which means for some reason you're being affected negatively, and then we need to take closer attention to that quicker. If it's positive, then because some people who believe in this stuff or are reporting this stuff are happy with it. They're just reporting it and saying that, I believe and this is an angel and this is that, and I just want to let you know. And that's okay, because if you indicate to us that it's positive, we might not need to investigate it. We just know and we log in as research. Do you have any evidence? This is a good important one. If you say yes, that you have evidence, or actually if you say no, it says it's fine, but I'll be asking you for a drawing because I need some sort of visual reference. But if you say yes, you don't upload it. So I ask you what your strongest piece of evidence is, and then you select either digital, documentary, forensic, or physical. And then you select whatever one it is, the best one, and it says you will be contacted to retrieve the evidence. And the reason for that is so that way I have to reach out to you. MUFON asks you to upload the evidence. That's what makes it easy for them to take it, because you're giving it to them. I need, you're sending the report, you're holding on to that. I will ask you for it, and if you don't trust me to send it to me, then I failed, right? So the idea here is that's what you need to hold on to if you have evidence in order to be treated, properly. Also, depending on the evidence you have, there may be a different way or a proper way for you to send it in, especially for forensics. So depending on what it is, it may be best that you leave the sample in place. MUFON's known for telling you to send the samples in to be the lab. Well, unless you know how to collect a sample without contaminating it and also submit a control sample, by the time it gets to the lab, it's going to be ruined anyway. So we want to know that it exists, and then I will ask for it after. And then another question is, were you injured? If you say no, then that's fine. If you say yes, then of course that bumps you up to on the importance level as well. And then you get down to your category, what type of abduction experience are you reporting, and then your subcategory. But then I get you to ask, is it exactly like that or different? So for you earlier,
can I go
you could
back
say
to were you injured?
Yeah,
Can I add something on injured? You might want to add, do you have any markings? Because they may not be an injury, but you might have.
Or markings. Okay, I'm writing that down. Thank you.
Okay.
So say for your example, abduction, and then you select your subcategory, shadowy figure, and the next question is this exactly what you experienced or different? Well, you would say different, and then you would explain to me how it compares to a shadow figure, but different. Because it could be a shadow. So with that question, that's where I realized that the alien abduction or the alien being and the shadow beings are similar. Because some people will say, well, it looked like an alien, but it had red eyes. And then someone will report a shadow figure and say it had red eyes. So the red eyes is a constant. Maybe it's the same being, right? It's just a difference of lighting, a difference of medication, a difference of whatever, right? And then what direction were you facing? Describe the movement. So then you get characteristic questions based on what you did. Then I ask you to describe the event. But by the time you get to that point, you pretty well put everything I need to know. So that's where you get to put that blurb in and say anything you feel like. But usually that information will come back to later because I'll have the who, what, where, and when, and that's how I'll be able to categorize it or look at what type of situation we're looking at to determine what kind of investigation. Then I ask what could be a rational and logical explanation for this event. So you tell me what you think it is. So 9 times out of 10, what you think it might be is probably what it is, and that's where I start my investigation. It's trying to prove, your rationality and, truth. And then I ask, what would you like us to do with this report? Now, here's the good thing. If you say, I don't want you to share it, well, then we're not going to share it. But if you say, do whatever, then I got a written testimony from you and permission, and I know exactly what it is you want us to do with this report. There's no guessing. You get to tell us what you want out of it. And that changes from person to person. And then I ask, what about just yourself and experience can be said to consider this report credible? You get to say anything you want. If you say I'm a mom with 4 kids and I'm busy, hardworking mom with 4 kids, that's something that I get all the time, and that's okay. That's the answer that you put to say that you're credible. That's fine. You don't need to say I'm a doctor or I'm a police officer. You just need to, everyone is credible, right? MUFON asks,
right.
MUFON has, they have a scale where we measure the strangeness and the credibility based on statistics, which is, the more educated the person is, the more probable that the case is true. The more the sophisticated occupation, the more credible the report is. There's a medium age, if you're too young or too old, you're not credible. So they use this
Wow.
scale to determine one's credibility. I don't like that. So that's the reason for this is you tell me why you think you're credible, and then that's good enough for me. If you say I'm back, back crazy, yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Do you ask if there are witnesses?
Yeah, that's the first question. How many witnesses are there, and if I'm able to contact the witnesses?
I've had people that have been on ship, and then they'll go shopping in their town, and there's the other woman with the hybrid. They run into each other at the store. I've had people like that. Now, they didn't know at the time because they do a mind wipe. So when you ask about, is this a one-off or ongoing, it could be ongoing, but they're only getting the most recent thing or one of the. So what we do, I do hypnotherapy.
Yeah,
we get their screen memory, and we don't lead the witness, but we allow them to, go into a regressed state. And it's very easy to do, and they often get a lot more information, and because there's a block that gets put in, and sometimes it's just trauma. If someone perceives something as trauma, there's a natural lacuna that enacts in human beings to prevent us from being, traumatized so we can't go to work that day, right? So it kind of gets filed away for later. So this is wonderful. So go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to add
that is
those
also
things.
why I measure these things individually, separately, and then I measure the experiencer separately, because it doesn't matter if you're abducted by a ghost, an alien, or a human being. You're still suffering. You still may show signs or symptoms of anxiety and post-traumatic stress. So in my opinion, it doesn't matter. If those symptoms exist, then we need to support, right? We need to provide some sort of guidance or some help, right? Sorry, what were you going to say?
And also what you see is influenced by your belief structure. So, for instance, when I was a child, the Betty and Barney story, the Hill story, hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
So what I saw were actually ETs. I called them ghosts because I didn't have a logical explanation for what I was seeing. And if you think about it, Casper kind of looks like a little gray alien, right?
It could be. It could be. So that's where the drawings come in too, right? Just draw what you saw. Don't describe to me what you saw. Draw what you saw, and then I'll make the comparison, right? The next question is do you have any concerns with sharing? Sorry, are there any concerns you might have with sharing your experience to help others? If you say yes, then I'll email you and ask you what those concerns are. If you say no, then that means it's okay to share your experience. Is this the only report you'll be submitting? If you're saying yes, then I know that's it. If you say no, then I'll expect more. Then if it's necessary, we'll complete other forms, and that's yes and no. So there are another group of forms that I'm going to send out eventually once I get more time to work on the secondary reports, because I do want to break down. So we have the subcategories. We have abductions, and then say we have shadow figures, right, which is an entity. I do want to have another reporting where I contact all the people who have reported abductions with entities and get them to break down the characteristics, the height, the color, the eyes, and all that other stuff, and measure trends so you can actually identify the culprit, right?
Right.
That's true. And then at the bottom, would you like a copy of this report for your records? That is something else too that MUFON doesn't do. You have to. There's a whole elaborate process of screening and all this other stuff before you can get a copy of what you submitted. What we do is we send you an exact copy of what you submitted in a nice presented form for you to print off and keep in your records. So, which also shows that if you said, do not share my stuff, and you have a copy of that, and I share your stuff, then you can hold me accountable. So this is based on the fact that I know that many people have a hard time trusting anyone with this information. But you need to trust the legal system, and this is literally a waiver and consent in one. But plus, at the very least, you get a documented report for your records. So from there, I get the case whenever, I'll usually check on Thursdays, and then I'll reach out and tell you, I'll give you your case number, and then I'll go and I'll get to work, and I'll probably ask you for a drawing at first, and then we'll go back and forth. And then what I do, my goal here is not to debunk. It is to take your experience and find other experiences or other information that suggests that what you're telling me is possible. So if it's possible, then there's something going on. I'm not going to tell you. So if we go back to cryptid, this is one of the big ones too with interpretation. So if I selected cryptid, your choices for second. So cryptid is defined as an animal or creature whose existence or survival is disputed or substantiated. Which group best describes what you saw? Your choices are aquatic, avian, canine, feline, primate, or reptile. So, of course, if you saw Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, you would select primate. But I'm not going to tell you that you saw Bigfoot because I don't know that. But I might be able to confirm and by reasonable probable grounds that you saw something that looked like an ape. So then we would have to do some research in that area to find out if primates are regional to that area. So, and same thing. So I'm not going to tell you what it is. When the report is done, that gets sent out to other people, like to you, to share to whomever you want, and to formulate your own opinion. If I break it down to the core, just like religion has been adopted and changed many times over the years, but if you break it down and come back to the Sumerian roots, you'll realize that the Sumerian religion or epic is way far-fetched from the Christian. A lot of things have changed, right? So you got to break it down to the core, and that's what I'm trying to do is understand, okay, you know what? Out of 100 people within a month, they've all seen an entity, and the average height is 5'7". Okay, so that's what I'm looking for, something that's 5'7" on average, right? So that's basically the idea. So once that's done and we go through, and it happens to be... So that's the investigative side. Now the support side, so you click the support tab. I do have other people on the team here. So Priscilla she's my wife. She's a Reiki master and spiritual advisor.
Okay, wait, the support tab. That's the top. Okay,
yeah,
and you're getting garbled again, so just be aware of that. And next time we do this, you're going to have a nice mic.
I'm going to have to get a nice mic.
I said you're getting garbled. Yeah. Well, you're going to be taken off here. I'm going to put you on another radio station. You're going to get a lot of interviews, so just be prepared.
All right. Well, get a lot of reports too. I need the reports though as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So we're looking at the
are you on the support tab?
and you were saying I'm on the
So at the
support
very
tab,
top,
and you said that your wife is part of your support team. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so below me, so at the top you'll see live experiences support. So that is something else that I'm working on too. What I eventually want to have is a phone number dedicated to TESA that you could call when you're experiencing something, so that I can walk you through how to report it. Because a lot of people panic, or they'll zoom into the object and it damages the video. There's the idea here is almost like a 911 for experiences.
It's wonderful.
Thank you. I've been talking about myself, so I'm there at the top, and then below that is Priscilla, which is my wife. She's a Reiki master and spiritual advisor. We haven't put her bio together yet. Below that is Leslie Mitchell-Clark. She's a clinical master hypnotherapist and master NLP, so she does regression hypnotherapy.
Priscilla doesn't have a picture.
No, not yet.
I'm looking at Priscilla. She looks like a couple hearts.
That's her.
Okay,
that's her logo for her Reiki there. And then underneath we have Wes Roberts, which is an experiencer guide and mentor. And then we have a nutrition wellness coaches below that. Media director, you're talking to Michael, so that's Michael there. And Stephen Coffey right now, he's our UAV pilot. So he's my expert on drones. Whenever I get information about drones, I get him to comment on it. So when I put my opinion out there and I think that someone may be experienced or need some sort of treatment for the symptoms that I see, such as anxiety or post-traumatic stress, I then send it to the support team where Leslie, Wes, Priscilla, Jamie, Michael, and Stephen will all chime in and say, yeah, I think that we could help them. So it's getting the report and then acknowledging that there is some degree of support that is needed, and then we try to provide that. Now, that collectively within the support team, we all have different ways of contributing. Some people may charge for some of these additional help, but they will do a little bit for free, or they'll give us a significant discount because they've been referred to through TESA. With less,
I was going to ask you about most clinical hypnotherapists charge, and I do hypnotherapy and I charge, but I usually go across a scale based on what you can afford.
Well, I charge for investigations as well, but I'm not charging anybody for my reports, right? So it's that's what I do. We leave it up to the individual to at least at the minimum give a discount. You don't have to,
because you got to pay. Everybody has to pay their bills because we're living in a society where we all have to pay a roof over our heads and the utilities and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And yet we want to give. So for me, it's been difficult because I just don't have enough hours in a day, to
this
do
is
it all.
how
So
we expand.
part of what I do is these shows because I create awareness.
And awareness is part of it. That's exactly right. So there's going to be a next level to this. So this is just the bare bones and the idea. And as things expand, we're going to get more attention and we're going to want more people to be involved. Now, I am the expert investigator because, of my experience and whatnot, but that doesn't mean I'm the best investigator in the world. And same thing with Priscilla being a Reiki master and Leslie being a hypnotherapist. These are people that I've personally vetted and I know and I've tested and I've experimented with, and I feel that they're confident enough to treat people properly, based on my opinion. But that doesn't mean that others can't do it as well. So what we're eventually going to have are guilds within. So one person would be responsible for brainstorming with others of the same type of profession. Then we just throw, hey, this person needs regression hypnotherapy. Can anyone contact? And then somebody puts their hand up and says, yeah, I'm willing to do that. And then you can reach out, and then you guys can discuss, back and forth on however it's needed. Now, when a regression is done, that gets sent back to me, and then I add that to the case. So I like using third-party information because there's my opinion. I could contact Leslie or yourself, in the future and say, hey, can you? I think this person's an experiencer. Could you, reach out and tell me what you think? So you tell me what you think, and then you think they would benefit from regression as well. So then you put that, you figure that out. You go through, do the process, send me the recording. You don't have the case, I do, and then I compare the recording to my case, and I see how much of that stuff adds up, right? And if it all adds up, then that builds the credibility. That gets attached to the case, right?
Let me add a couple things here, too. This information is just incredible what you're doing, and I love what you're doing. And I'm part of me is in the future. I see this being huge. I did want to add that I've worked with what was the lady that ran the Toronto Alien Con, Alien Cosmic Expo. What was her name?
So there's Joanne Edie.
Oh yeah, I know Joanne. Yeah, so we presented at the second one. They haven't had us back, I guess, because it's so much to fly across from Maui to Toronto. But she has a conference. What year was that?
What year was that? Well, you might have met me then.
What was this? I probably did. You look familiar. But anyway, so she works with my sister-in-law, my husband's sister. And my husband's sister has the International Hypnosis Federation. And so Joanne does a hypnosis thing besides the UFO thing. I thought she was going to pass it off, but I guess she kept it because it just grew. I was there the second year, and she said, we have to get a larger venue. So then they went into a larger venue. So I'd love to go back, but, I have to pick and choose where I fly to because it's time-consuming and expensive. But I just want to say that this International Hypnosis Federation has, and I talked to my sister-in-law, and I said, I'm doing this. You follow, do you have a subgroup within your federation that is, they're learning to do this type of work with experiencers? So I can help with that if we want to get more local. You can do hypnosis on the internet, and I do a lot of that. And there's Zoom and there's Skype, so we do that as well. I'm open to that. Although we need more people. I mean, we need tons of people.
We definitely do.
If you have an incident and the person agrees to go, wants to explore that, there's always more under it. There's always more. It's absolutely amazing what's under. But you got to be careful. Because some people in the UFO field over the last 30, 40 years, they were steering people into a certain type of abduction experience. And I know, like David Jacobs, so, and I don't want to really talk bad about him, but it just seems like he had an agenda, and that's the type of experiences that he pulled out of his people. So we have to be very careful not to lead the witness, not to interject ourselves. The person has to be really empathetic.
Which is why I do the investigation first. So that way, when you're going in blind, and then I will share the experience with you afterwards. Because as an investigator, I've investigated all these cases, but I am not an experiencer that I'm aware of. So I find that helps me when I investigate, because I need to study these phenomenons as well. Because if you do a regression hypnotherapist, or anyone does, and it lines up with my research that I know you don't have, then I'm documenting that, because that's proof that you're on a spectrum that I don't understand. But that's fact. That's data, right? So I'm also measuring these pseudosciences in a sense. A prime example, in my paranormal group before, when it was just me and my wife, and my friend Eddie, we went to an opera house where it was allegedly haunted, and I did some research. I did a research package on my own, just a standard investigation, because I didn't have the reporting system yet. Took reports from multiple people, measured the trends, and I was able to establish 3 hotspots. Priscilla's, intuitive and or like empath, And me not knowing at the time or trying to understand that, of course I just took her to this place and just say, all right, do your thing, right? And out of a 3.5-story opera house, I had in an envelope with me, these 3 hotspots, and she pointed them out. So she says she didn't know what exactly had happened, but she had a feeling that something happened in this area, in this area, in this area. Now I know that she didn't do the research package, and I know that she didn't see what I had, and nobody else had seen it and because it was in the sealed envelope. So to me, that was evidence that it's possible for some people to be able to experience this phenomenon as well. So then I'm also studying that as well. So the support team is important as well, because it'll give credibility to have someone on the back end saying, you know what, yeah, it sounds crazy, but 9 times out of 10, this person's right. This person found a missing person case using dowsing rods. Well, you know what? They found the person, right? Here's the report earlier of them not knowing anything about the case and the work I did for 5 weeks, and then I told them to take a walk in this bush and tell me what you find, and they found it. That's hypothetically, that's never happened, but I mean, that would be, the same idea. So how do you ignore that? Oh, then you're in on it. Well, I've done it 100 times. Am I in on it 100 times? Right? So I'm trying to, because I'm in a legal profession, my idea is to prep it for court. I have to tell the judge that the ghost did it, or the UFO, took my neighbor. How do you prove that? It's very hard, but I'm getting somewhere. The other thing too, I will add is with MUFON. MUFON represents. They claim they have all these investigators, but you don't know who they are. You only know who the directors are. But you don't know. People didn't know who I was until I started promoting myself. And, of course, I had MUFON's reputation with me. I had a lot of people who loved what I did but wouldn't help me because I was with MUFON. And as soon as MUFON cut me loose, kicked me out and whatnot, all these doors started opening, saying, oh, hey, it was like, oh, yeah, I remember you. Why don't you help? It's like, oh, I thought you hated me. No, I didn't hate you. I hated MUFON. Like, oh, all right.
Aww.
So, so what I've done now is when I say I'm the CEO of Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services, what I'm not trying to tell you that I'm a big shot. What I'm trying to tell you is that I have a business. I work every single day. I'm not retired. And if I tell you that I think something strange is going on, and if I'm wrong, or if I break confidentiality on this reporting system, you have all the tools to ruin my life. So you have to, you have to trust the people you're reporting to. And I'm giving you, and our philosophy too, Leslie puts out her business, Wes puts out hers, these are all, the reason why we get the support from businesses is so that way I know you're not messing around, because you're going to do a good job because your reputation is on the line. It's not just writing a book and doing a UFO thing under the table as a hobby. It's like, no, I work for a living, I have kids, whatever, but whatever the case may be, it makes everyone credible.
You're getting garbled again, so watch your mic. Watch your mic again.
Sorry.
You're getting garbled. Okay, let me interject something. Remember where you're at.
Go ahead.
I just want to interject something. So one of the things that I do, and I don't do it all the time, if I was more organized like you, I'd do it all the time, but if I have an experiencer coming on, I said, can you send me pictures of what your beings look like? And if you don't have one that you've drawn, just search the internet and you'll find it. Do you have, or are you planning on having a database of aliens that maybe they could say, does it look like this? Also, what I always wanted, my friend Misha Johnson has a friend that's like a police artist, and she'll describe it to the person, and they draw it.
That is somebody we need.
So we're putting that out there. Please contact us, because we need a police artist type person.
That would be the best, because then I would just give you the description, and I would just say, okay, draw what this person is describing, and then I send it to the experience and say, hey, is this what you saw? It is exactly like Dead Files, but that's let's pretend, the Dead Files isn't on TV, and then that, the possibility that none of that has been, done for ratings. The concept, the idea of having someone draw an experience to confirm is brilliant. And that would be part of the support too, because not everyone are artists, right? People can draw what they, but I mean,
right. I have trouble drawing this stuff, and I get frustrated. It's like, oh man.
But I would still get you to draw too, right? Because your stick figure might have hair on it in certain places, right? So
right, and she has these incredible art drawings from these people, and they just, oh, I'm jealous. Look, that's what. And then I'll see hers. I go, yeah, mine looks like that too, but the nose was bigger, or or smaller.
Yeah,
there wasn't a nose.
And then everyone sees her artwork, and then TESA carries with her. That's also part of the support too. Like, there's been many times, like, that's the funnel here. Is we're doing some stuff for free. But then later on, you might refer us to somebody else. I might get a call for someone because they did such an amazing job on investigating a UFO that someone might call me and say, hey, I live around the corner and my wife's cheating on me. Can you help me? Well, there's a paid gig, right? That's
right.
That's how we make it, is awareness, right? This is what we're doing. This is highlighting my talents. This is what I'm good at. Right? There's a little bit for free. If you want more, then you know how to get a hold of it, right?
Right.
So another thing that I'm working on too is when I have this data. Okay. So to answer your question, once I get enough reports, there's a few things that I want to roll out. We're going to make a calendar of the top 12 reports. Right? We're going to sell those a little bit. Once we get permission from the experiencers,
like a
calendar.
You're talking about like a calendar that
like
you
a monthly
hang in the wall
calendar of the top 12 cases. Right, we'll put that out, and we'll give a copy to each of the experiencers that contribute to that. Right. Anytime we make anything out of it, we'll give the experiencer a copy, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have it. Right. So that's another philosophy that we'll do too. If we're going to use your stuff, you get a copy. Yeah, hands down, like you should. Right. And then that's the top 12. And then what I'm going to do is top 52, and I'm going to make some playing cards, which will be nice, because in the playing cards, everyone's sitting at the table, and you're like, oh, what is this about? And then it's going to be a link to the case and all that other stuff. But I can't do that until I have a full year to do that. I'm also making what's called the Traveler. So MUFON has this giant book of investigation stuff, and none of that stuff is actually used or relevant as an investigator by trade. Most of that stuff is fluff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make what's called the Traveler, which is going to be a pocket size, almost the same size as a police notebook, that fits in your pocket, that is nothing but images, color charts, height charts, anything like that, graphics basically. And then you sit down and with the witness and say, is this, did it look like this? Did it look like that? So the image, so part of that
that's
will
wonderful.
be created, and then that will also be available for other investigators, for any organization, because it's a handy tool to have. And that's again, that's where we'll get our support, is by creating merchandise or tools that can be used to help get the proper information. So all kinds of things to get that out too. Then
I see you getting big. You're gonna get big. Because you're so creative, and you're not about self only. So you're finding ways for people to get involved. You're building a team. You're building a team, and everybody.
MUFON is a team, but nobody knows who that team is. They boast that they have 600 investigators, and 130 of those are in Canada. Well, I can tell you that for the last 5 years, there was only 3 of them doing the cases. That was me and 2 other people.
Whoa.
Me and 2 other people, but yet they claim to have 500 people. No, they don't, right? So, and all the work I did for them at the very end, what did they do? They gave me the boot because I was trying to help them change, and instead they saw this as a threat and decided to give me the boot. So,
that's so common in the UFO field, and it's frustrating because I'm just an old hippie, right? And it's like, kumbaya, let's all come together. See, I started out in Star Trek. I was 12 when Star Trek started, and they canceled it. And then we had to come together to get it renewed, and then made it to the movies. And here it is 56 years later, and Star Trek is still popular. But that was not about competition. That was about unifying with the intention of creating a reality where extraterrestrials were intelligent. Before that, all we had was the blob and monsters. After that, we had Spock, and the whole concept that there could be intelligent species in the planet that we could interact with. All these things have shifted consciousness for all of creation, and now we're in a Star Trek reality. Now they try to make it Star Wars. You know, it's all about violence, and so I don't think it's because I'm an experiencer that's had lifelong experiences, and from my experiences, there's a huge federation out there, and it's peaceful and it's loving, and we're looking at humanity going, what the, you know, they really want us to get off it and get over it. And so I love what you're doing, because you're like me. You're building a team. You're finding a way that you can all keep your lights on and roof over your head, and come together and do something that benefits all of humanity, all of creation. And it's fun.
And MUFON's included.
This is fun.
MUFON, I'm not.
And we include MUFON.
The door's not closed. It's just you gotta drop the ego and we'll work together.
Yeah.
So there's more, though.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead. We still have more time.
Since we're going this far, I also am taking. So I have a classification system. So it's unknown, identified, or inconclusive. So basically, inconclusive just basically means there's not enough evidence to formulate an opinion. But the ones who are unknown, they get split into two categories. There's an experiencer or a witness. I've created what's called experiencer cards, which I will send out to the experiencers, and they'll be numbered. So experiencer card number 1, experiencer card number 4, 5, whatever number you get. When you get that card, it basically just means that we believe you to be an experiencer. But then say you're number 7, and you know that there's 6 other people as well who you're not alone. And as that number grows, then we'll start to see how many experiencers are actually out there based on the reports and the good work, right? And also after the investigation is done, I do send you a copy of my investigation report as well. And I do another section for witnesses. So those will be people who saw something in the sky, but it does appear to be strange and unusual and doesn't fit in the normal explanation that we understand. So we will give them a witness card. At some point in the game, what I want to create is a disclosure movement, which would be a peaceful protest where we basically call on the experiencer cards and the witness cards, and we gather and we just say we know. We know you know. We basically say we all have seen these things. We all know that things exist, and take a bit of a peaceful protest. That'll take some time to build and some legalities here, which is another reason why I'm staying in Canada, because I'm familiar with Canadian law, because I'm born and raised in Canada.
What are some of the legalities? You're not allowed to.
Well, we can have a peaceful protest.
To do some of this,
right?
Peaceful protest. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we can do a peaceful protest, but it's iffy. I also am tracking drone reports from the Civilian Aviation Occurrence Center in Canada. So Transport Canada, they actually have civilian reports of UFOs sometimes. Sometimes I use the keyword UFO. So I've done a few access to information requests. I've gotten, I think I filed for 4, and all of them have come back tampered, opened and resealed mail. So that's something else that I'm doing. And then that's pretty well it in a nutshell. Oh, detachments. That's important for bringing everybody together. So MUFON has their chapters where, everyone comes together and they pay set fee to listen about MUFON and what MUFON does in the cases that they have. And that's how it's always been run, and I've been a part of that for many years. But what TESA's doing, we have one detachment. We're launching another one in Toronto in September. And what we're basically doing is our detachment directors are responsible for taking reports live on the spot, because the reporting system is also mobile and tablet friendly. So I could actually interview you face to face and get the and talk to you and get the information to fill it out for you. These detachment directors, what they're responsible for doing is taking the cases in. They let me know what comes from the detachment. I do the investigation and I send it back to the detachment director, so that way the detachment can talk to their own individual groups, and then they can have discussions based on the information that was discovered. So you have discussion groups all over the place, but collecting and funneling all those reports in. The payment scale for that, again, MUFON has a set amount, whether or not you liked it or not. Ours is pay what you can and take what you need, which basically means if you want to donate $2 towards the, what is it worth to you, right? Like some people are used to paying $20, they might pay 10. Some person might not be able to afford $5, so they give you $1. At least you got something, because then the person who can't afford $5 isn't coming. At least you know what I mean? And then the take what you need is for the detachment director, which is the person who put on the event, who hosted the event, collected the information. They get to keep all the money if they want, or they can keep some of it and contribute the rest to TESA. It's completely up to them. Whereas MUFON's philosophy was collect all this money, give it to us, and if you want some, we'll give you some. So we're kind of, like, money's important, but we're hoping that if we like, money, I won't say it's important. Money is needed to survive, unfortunately. But I feel like if we don't put a number on it and we don't force it, we allow it to occur naturally, we'll get more attention over time. Again, the idea of getting people coming forward, listening, speaking and reporting and asking the questions, because I can't do anything. I can't go on any radio shows if I don't have anything to talk about. It takes you, it takes anybody, it takes all these people, to provide a service, to stand up and speak about it. Like with any trauma, any situation is no good to keep inside. Right. So, and you can't talk to the police. You can't talk to a doctor. Right. Who are you going to talk? Who are you going to call? Right. But like
Ghostbusters. Ryan Stacey.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a scenario, and I wanted to know where you might put this. A couple things. So I ran the Penn State UFO discussion group from 1989 to 1993, and then I came to Hawaii, and I was getting an apartment, and I didn't know for sure I had the apartment, so I went over and I had the apartment. She said, come over, sign the lease. I signed the lease. I had a roommate. We went down to get, she took us to where the mailboxes were. It was a high-rise. Here's the mailboxes in the lobby, and here's your key. So she gives me the key, and I put it in the mailbox, and I turn it, and I go, wow, there's a letter in here. And I pulled out, and it was addressed to me. Now, I didn't know I was going to live there until she said, yes, come over and sign the lease. And there was already a letter in there. It was from my UFO support group. It was from a fellow who was a whistleblower. And he was talking kind of like secret space, secret service, secret military information. And he was warning me. And he said, they're on to you. They're going to get... I'm on the run, but it was kind of a scary letter, and I read this and I went, oh, how did that happen? Was this a time travel thing? How did this guy get a letter to me before I even knew I was renting this apartment? Now, where do you put that?
Well, maybe you had a phone call conversation with somebody and you listened to the call.
No? Yeah, he could have been in the secret military. Somebody could have told him that I was talking about moving there, but I was already living in another place. This was like I was leaving a boyfriend, and I was going to move in with my girlfriend for a while because we loved each other, but we couldn't stand living together. And he was a drunk, right? So I said, okay, I'm just going to move across to this other building. It was just weird, but it could be overhearing a conversation.
Yeah.
So that's on the line of secret military or something. Maybe this guy was in anyway, do you get whistleblowers? Do you get secret space program people? I get a lot of secret space program people.
So I do have a couple reports that have been reported about possible secret space program activity. And I have sent in for regression, and a regression has been done. I have not listened to the recording yet. It is common. I haven't had enough reports come in that I can compare his case to anyone else. So I do have his right now. I only have one, but he's made multiple reports and of travel and all this stuff. And I was in the Army for 2 years as well, infantry soldier. So I can't I have a limited experience, but I mean I can see the things that he says and the words that he uses that it's possible. But then again, so with television and mainstream media and all that stuff, how do we separate imaginations from facts, right? So Leslie has done the regression. She has not seen my investigative report yet. So when I listen to it, that'll be the make or break, because then I'll be like, yep. How did you get that information from him when I already had it, right? So yes, I do get it. Again, I'm limited because everyone knows. Nobody knows who we are yet, right? So we're just starting. We're only as good as people know. That's pretty well it.
And I get time travelers. They're very interesting too. So what I noticed is if I prejudge something, you're not going to get the story. So
I'm not going to prejudge anyone either, but you also got to.
No, you're not. You're not. Yeah.
Well, I am going to tell you though. So I am going to ask questions. I am going to ask if you'd be willing to be tested. Like I have one guy. I had 2 cases where someone claimed to have psychic abilities, where they were able to see into the future. So precog or cognitive. Yeah.
Yeah, precog.
So I just said, I asked them both at the same time, to different reports. Hey, would you be willing to test this ability to prove it true? I believe you, but I would like to test you so that way I have some evidence to support that you're telling me the truth or that this phenomenon exists. One person stopped talking to me, and the other person said yes. So we're currently in the middle of discussing parameters and how we could test it. So,
but some precogs have no control over it. They're like Cassandra and Troy. It's like no control. All of a sudden they're in a vision.
Well, that's also part of me understanding the phenomenon. So if it's willing to be tested, under what variables? So I need to talk to them and say, okay, what are the conditions that happen when it happens? Okay, let's try and recreate that event. So for a paranormal investigation, for an example, if somebody says, reports 3 apparitions in the same location on 3 separate nights, well, I'll have an average time frame and I'll have an average location, right? So I'm not going to show up in the house in the middle of the day. I'm going to show up at the house at that time, maybe a year later on the same date or whatever, and try to recreate the event. Because at that point, I'm going to see all the variables that are in place in order to solve that mystery. Right?
Wow.
So with all these other phenomenons, I'm only good with what I understand, and I'm only at the tip of the iceberg. So the more information that comes forward, the more I will learn, the more I will understand. And when I break it down to trends, I'll be able to release the public report that anyone can take and run with and use that to enhance their research. Because it'll be also divided into categories. So I'll split it into UFO cases and give that to MUFON. Here you go, use that, right? It's free information. You use it. Be better. Always do better. And so the idea is to create a one-stop shop of information that can be contributed to all the people who are not run by government. So all the civilian organizations that are doing what we're doing, because. MUFON could be CIA, who knows? Through the Stars Academy could be CIA, we don't know, right? So there's, we are the underdogs. So it's really hard for one person to do what we're doing, But again, with the association, the concept is if we all work together doing little bits here and there, on a whole, we become larger and stronger, strength in numbers. Mm-hmm. And the only way we're really going to get an answer from disclosure is not from investigators forcing the government to speak. It's the experiencers confident enough to stand up and say, this has happened to me. And that's mm-hmm. the direction that I'm leading to create that network of people that can confirm that something is going on. Explain this to me. I'm a doctor. Explain this to me. I'm a soldier. How do you explain that? And the other thing too is the question for disclosure is wrong. People are asking if aliens exist. That's a very easy way for them to deflect. When mm-hmm. When I have my survey, if I ever am in a position where I can ask those questions, I'm not going to ask, do you believe aliens exist? Well, we know that aliens exist. I'm going to ask, are you mm-hmm. aware, for say a UFO example, are you aware that on May 25th, 2019, that there were 6 lights floating in the sky reported by an aircraft? And then they'll be like, yes or no. Right? I'm not mm-hmm. asking them if it's an alien. I'm asking them if they're aware of these objects in the sky, because they don't know I already have a photo. They don't know I already have a video. They don't know that I've already confirmed that the object is in the sky. So if they say mm-hmm. no, then my follow-up question is, well, how are you not aware? What are we paying for? That could have been a Russian attack. How are you not aware? I don't bring aliens to the table mm-hmm. at all. I'm asking the wrong. So you ask the same question. You ask the right question to the right person. And then if they say yes, then we get confirmation. But that doesn't mean it's alien either. It just means that they're aware. So, there's so many ways to approach this, but mm-hmm. I want to stay away from the disclosure thing because there's so many people fighting for it. And once it's out, it's out. And the other part for TESA too, this is the other thing, the vision. When you say this is going to blow up, well, I think the mission here or the philosophy here is to have a support system for people to turn to when disclosure happens. Because mm-hmm. you're going to have a bunch of people that will be like, oh, I told you, I knew that happened to me. Or you're going to have some people saying, oh, they're lying to us. And then you're going to have a group of people saying, I thought that was a nightmare. That really happened to me? Oh, my God.
Right.
What do I...
Yeah, they're going to need to integrate their experiences. Mm-hmm.
And then that's the idea.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've had those discussions at the conference about what happens when disclosure happens, and anyway, the religious aspect. Some things are going to. The curtain's going to come down, and Oz is behind the curtain, and the Emperor has no.
Well, what happens when they figure out how to?
Be revealed.
Yeah. What happens when they figure out how to live on another planet? Well, then all of a sudden they leave us behind. We're the ones who are left behind. So we need to figure out how to survive where the rich and powerful leave this planet.
Stars. I think we're going. I think we've been to the stars. I think we've. Yeah. I go off planet all the time. I go on ships. I think there's many experiencers that are, have been on Mars, have been on the moon, have been on in the colonies.
I'm lucky if I get out of my office.
Well, apparently the whole solar system is colonized. There's just all these bases everywhere and colonies. I had a question about the apparitions, haunts, poltergeists, and other unusual phenomena. Okay, so my sister has the house that my family has had since 1901, I think it was, and it's very haunted. And there's a portal, much like the movie Poltergeist. And there's a portal there. And as a child, there were all these things coming through the portal. Now, what do you do when you have a house like that? And it's been constant, but it's not a scheduled thing. But it would require, I guess, if someone were to investigate the house I grew up in, and somehow my sister wouldn't be freaked out. I try not to freak her out because she's still living there. She still has the house. they would probably have to come and stay for a couple of weeks to really get the whole gist of it, and maybe set up cameras.
And that's where it becomes expensive, right? Because I would have to travel.
Right.
So to make it easier, again, on the investigative side of things, I want to create a guild of researchers as well, where I could say, okay, you are in proximity of this location. I'm not going to tell them what, the situation. I need you to go to the city hall and pull up the roll number of this property and send that to me. Because, I can get information from a property search, right? And I could be able to maybe look at that on a deed and maybe determine a ley line. Maybe there's a ley line, a gravitational pull, or underneath.
See, that would be fascinating. What if you had it on your site that you pay for the expenses and we can fly to your place and do an investigation?
Well,
but it would be a fee.
I'm more than willing to do that. But I mean, again, what if somebody needs the help and they can't afford it? So there's also
I know.
I do want to create a benevolence grant as well for those who need it that can apply. So those who do provide support and donate, and we're going to put that in a pot. We're not spending it right now. We're just trying to figure out how to use it. It's one of those. Of course, expenses paid. Time is irrelevant. You'll never get your time back. You shouldn't charge for your time.
No, you'll never get your time
back. But
well, I was thinking you could probably joint venture with a film crew, or a documentary or a television station.
Well, I definitely could if anyone was interested.
Oh, well, they're going to be listening and you're going to get contacted. Yeah, because you could come into these places, my house is haunted, have it in your database, and you would know that from your investigation. Like, say somebody lives somewhere like my house, right? I mean, I can give you 20 incidents, and when I compared it with my brother and my sister, after 30-some years of living in the house, we all had episodes that correlated with each other, much like what you find. But we kept it secret because we were kids and we didn't want to be, told that we were crazy, right? Especially back in the 50s and 60s, they used to stick you in institutions. They don't do that anymore. But back then, they would kind of Baker Act you and put you away, and you could be away for life, right? So, but say you had a client that really wanted it, and then you could joint venture with a television.
Oh, of course. I definitely
think this
would.
is a series that you could have, yeah.
I mean, we definitely have the content. We have the information. I'd have to obviously, we get permission from the experiencer. But, if the experiencer is inviting us, well, then obviously that's consent there, too. I just want to make sure that we're not overstepping or taking advantage of someone's misfortune, too, right?
Right.
But
You're
I'm
not going to Hollywoodize them, but because that's not right. That's what happened to... My story apparently got out. Somebody Hollywoodized it, and that's
we can do
horrible.
that does happen, and we are capable of doing the same here in-house. With amateur video and recording, I know how to do some video editing and stuff like that too. I can bring my own film crew and put it on YouTube. If we get if we get 1,000 YouTube subscribers, then we can monetize the video and we can make some revenue from businesses who are paying for ads. There's ways to make money, but the money should be coming from the corporates. From the businesses, right, who make tons and tons and tons of money. That's where kind of using it, using that to our advantage, right? So there's ways of doing that. A film crew obviously would enhance it. I spent some time on TV too. They fed me some lines, and they said, I'm not saying that. They try to feed you lines. They know what's good, and they know what they want. I think. Having a film crew would be amazing, but an explanation of how the industry works, I think, would be good too. Maybe if I sat down with the experiencer and said, hey, it's just good for TV, it's good for awareness, but as long as we took care of them, the best we could. You
don't want to exploit anybody. You always have to be sensitive to them, and so that's why you need to have the professional emotional support. If they go into it, they can get triggered. And we're working with a couple clients. they're going into their stuff and they're getting triggered. So then it's like you have to be available. So I find when we're going into the client mode, the phone rings a lot. And even if I can't answer because I'm sleeping, I'm back on it when I wake up. And I go, okay, I'm here. What's going on? What's going on? So it would be great to have a team.
I would love to
like
do
you
that.
Said, the hotline.
Well, I have a team here in my office for my security company too. So what we're planning on doing is a lot of them are also cross-trained to be private investigators too. And part of the training is actually investigating some of these cases because, it doesn't matter what the situation is. You still need to learn how to investigate. You still need to learn how to dig. You still need to learn how to link evidence and collect evidence, interview witnesses, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll always have a team digitally. But the hard part is when, say, we need a clearing, we need to do an exorcism or something. I haven't yet seen or witnessed an exorcism, and I would never refer or suggest one until I'm able to see one and test it myself, because I'm then liable if I say, hey, yeah, you need an exorcism. Well, then who are you going to call? You're going to call some random guy who may not know what he's doing, and then that comes back on me. So another thing that I'm trying to do is subject myself to different things and learn. Regression is going to be the last thing I do because I'm doing quite well knowing that I've never had an experience. I do not want to find out that I am an experiencer because that will ruin everything for me. So it's very important that I leave that till... Yeah, maybe.
Steve Bassett doesn't want to know either.
I just leave that until my dying days, and then we'll figure it out. But, to do this properly, I would have to travel. I would have to come to your place to ensure that you're being treated properly. But that's, again, based on my expertise, my opinions, my thought. But I would like to eventually create a team where I could have people closer and send them out, but that will take some time. But again, I'm working. I'm not retired. So funding comes in would be great so I could create a job to do this, right? So
well, I'm psychic. I know you're going to get big because your heart is just open.
I need if somebody were to invest in the product, you will not be disappointed. We just basically, I need the opportunity so that way the business can run without me, and then I'll travel every single day if the funds are there. And if the film camera wants to follow us, then that's good for them. Yeah.
That's good. So this house that my family still owns, I think it's on an interdimensional portal because these beings kept coming from the stairwell. There were two places they came from. There's a stairwell. There were two staircases. It was an old 1840s farmhouse, the original farmhouse for the whole area. It was up overlooking the Ohio River. But now the city had crept in around it. The suburbs had crept in. It was like Queens type suburbs, So, and then there was another part of the portal which was in my neighbor's backyard, and we would see beings materialize. One that looked like the Grim Reaper, one that was like death, I think it was a draconian. Like you said, there was confusion because of the times. The mind tends to try to explain it in logical, rational ways within our own reality, right? So I'm saying that's the Grim Reaper.
People have to
but under
stop
hypnosis,
trying to classify it. Just describe what you see.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, so what I'm just saying, the mind tries to wrap your head around it because it's not a human, it's not a dog, it's not a cat. It's like, what is this? And then your mind fills in the blanks. But under hypnosis, it was a reptilian face, and I saw it in a drawing. Thank God for drawings, right? David Icke had a drawing of a hooded reptilian, and when I read his book, the moment my eyes landed on the drawing, it became three-dimensional and in living color, and the being that I actually saw back in the late 50s, early 60s, jumped up out of my mind's eye, and I saw, its eyes, the eyes moving, and the slits in the eyes, and because I was in absolute terror when I was facing this creature, right? But there's 2 portals, so I would just love if you television producer want to hire Ryan and we could meet back in Pennsylvania, because I'd have to fly across the country too. I'd love to investigate that area to see indeed if that is some kind of interdimensional portal. But you mentioned the ley lines. You can see if that was just by pulling out records. So what else can you tell about?
Well, I wouldn't be able to see with records.
How do you tell a ley line?
Well,
yeah.
I'd have to look at research that's already been done by other researchers, right, and compare that to a map that we have and see if it lines up. And again, that's assuming that the people who have done the work before me is accurate, right?
Wow.
It's unless I'm going to study ley lines. Like I'm an expert in investigations. I can't be an expert in everything.
It's in ley lines,
so
right? You mentioned
I'm
ley lines.
going to have to. So ley lines is a theory, or well, it's not well. We do know that there's hot spots on the Earth that do generate more energy than normal, like the pyramids are on ley lines.
Mm-hmm.
Power stations or whatever theory we want to buy into there. So like there's the existence of energy nodes. Have they all been mapped out? I don't know. I'd have to look into it, or maybe we can find a ley line expert. So that's the thing, is I also want to have a team of experts. So with Steven, he's my drone guy, and he's been quiet and dormant for a little bit but he has a big job ahead of him, which is coming. And I've been tracking all these drones that TransCanada has been reporting as drones, but they're like somewhere near 10,000 feet in the sky and moving rapidly. Like the characteristics of the keyword drone doesn't make sense. So I'll be sending that to him for him to put his credible expertise on the line, saying that's not a drone based on that characteristic, and this is why. And then, so if I think it's a ley line, I would need someone who's an expert in ley lines on the TESA team to send that information and say, hey, yeah, it is a ley line, right? Or a demonologist, to send to the house to do an exorcism. Like we need to have an academic.
But what if we want our ghosts? We don't want them to go away. We just want to know what's going on.
Well, then you can do a seance. You can guide you through seances and things like that. But again, it's one of those at your own risk, because you really don't know the consequences, right? I mean. Yeah.
Well, anyway,
theory,
it's just a curiosity. I'd love to see the house preserved, because, like in Poltergeist, when they were building the pole, I think there's a lot of beings that would be disturbed. And this is an old house. When my sister dies, it'll probably get torn down, right? It's not your top level construction. But I think it's sacred ground. That's what I mean. I think there's beings there that need to be protected.
It could be an ancient burial ground. Like once I get the information,
it could be
what was there before, right? What's happening? Like it's residual energy. That's what and that's why I'm saying is like for me to go check a property in my town, I just go to the town office and I flash my badge and then I get the information, right? To do that halfway across the world. This could have been a
battleground. Like a battleground between the revolution, in the Revolutionary, one of the early wars. The Mormons say that there were battles all through the Americas before the white people came. So it seems like it could have been an ancient battleground or a burial but it'd probably be Native American.
Which suggests that a lot of people had died there, which means there could be residual energy there. And if there's a lot of residual energy in one spot, it's got energy doesn't die. It just transfers. It just moves, right? It's just, and that's standard, and like electricity. So, if we are electrical beings, if there are studies that suggest and support that, then the possibility of there being a void there is possible. Now, how do we prove that? Right, beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, putting, like you said, going there, putting boots on the ground.
Putting boots around. Now, this property where I live now in Maui.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've seen it, and many other people have seen ghosts, and I used to invite my girlfriends to sleep over. Like I said, I've always been an investigator. I go, I see ghosts. Do you want to see them? Oh, maybe. Well, ask your mom if you can stay over, and I get the report the next day. So I've been doing this all my life. Now, this property where I live too is a battleground, and we're going to be running out of time here. And there's many people who have reported ghosts, and I've seen them. In the daylight. They didn't wait till the night. They were just walking past my window in the daylights, and I'd go, whoa. And that's because a lot of Hawaiians were killed on this property from Kamehameha's forces. But we're running out of time here. I want to give the mic back to you about tell everybody about your websites again, how they can contact you. And we are going to have you back on our show. Let me get the date. I just put that in the calendar. Ryan Stacey is going to be back on August 25th on our Revolution radio show called The Sacred Matrix. I'll be sending out that announcement to the listeners and once I build that page. So I'm going to give you the last minute here, and then we'll do our exit music. And thank you so much, Ryan Stacey. So go ahead and tell everybody how to reach you and your website again.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for inviting me. So you can follow everything pretty well. You can go through TESACAN. So TESACAN.org. That's the website. There's tabs on the left-hand side. You can sign up for the newsletter. Let me just see here. So, yeah, on the TESA website at the very bottom, you can sign up for the newsletter, stay informed. We do have a Facebook page for TESA. We just started last week, which is how we were found for tonight. So that's www.facebook.com/The Experiencer Support Association. If you want to follow my personal investigative page, you can go to www.facebook.com/HeedTheWorld. And that's my citizen journalist UFO paranormal researcher page, where you can follow and track my personal investigations and whatnot. We do have a meetups group. So it's meetup.com and the Experiencer Support Association. You can also follow us and contribute on Patreon, which is patreon.com/the Experiencer Support Association. Where else are we? I think, on YouTube. Most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube page so you can see all our videos that come up. And I do a episode called Uncharted Case Files most Thursdays. I'm trying to do every Thursday, where I'm actually going to talk about the cases that have been reported, and you can ask me questions live, so I do that. So that's youtube.com/The Experiencer Support Association. I don't know if we're popular enough that you could Google the Experiencer Support Association or TESA. But if you find the website, TESACAN.org, it's pretty well, and sign up for the newsletter, you'll get connected to everything when we send out the newsletter, and we send one out once a month.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ryan. We're out of time. So much love and blessings. Thank you, listeners, and aloha, and we'll see you again not till Sunday. We'll see you on Sunday. Okay, aloha. Thank you, Ryan. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye now.
You when the time of true peace can begin. We are all one human family, sharing one home. Our home is a planet of peace, planet of peace, planet of peace. You of every nation, family to me. I feel such consternation that you suffer while I walk free. I will do all that I can to help unite this family of woman, child, and man. The leaders of our nation, are they wise as well as strong, or boys in imitation, pointing daddy's gun, threatening the future, endangering us all? The people of all nations are united